Today, we have the pleasure of being joined by Michelle DiSabato, President and founder of Community Impact Consultants. Michelle has over 20 years of experience in developing, designing, and implementing large-scale philanthropic initiatives and programmatic social impact analysis. She currently serves on the advisory board of A Fresh Chapter, which is a nonprofit organization focused on addressing the emotional challenges associated with cancer. So, Michelle, I will go ahead and pass it to you to give folks a little bit more about yourself and kind of get us into today. But it is such a pleasure to have you join us yet again.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashley. And let's see if I can get this going because technology may not be my strongest suit on a good day. Can you all see my
Looks
screen?
good. Looks great.
Awesome. So let's just get off the title. So as Ashley said, I've been in this space for a long time. I hate to say 30 years, but yes, it has been. I started off in your seats. I was a corporate program manager for a Fortune 10 company where I was sent down what I call my results journey, which is how I ended up in my own business. Because when I left the company, I thought I was going to like take time off and travel, but everyone started dinging me that knew me in the field. And my business started about 17 years ago. And I've worked, you can see some of the clients that I've worked with, some private foundations that are large, some big corporates, some smaller corporates, and obviously have also worked with nonprofits. Usually I work with them in alignment with my funder clients and how we can support them and support their partners. So excited to talk to you all because I really feel like the funder space, specifically the corporate funder space, really gets this thinking. And what I want to talk about and what we'll get through today is why measurement? Everyone's been talking about it for a long time. And I hope through this presentation, we can show you how, or I can show you how measurement will enable you to have that value add to your business. It's not a nice to have anymore. It is a strategic imperative for us to be able to measure the impact of the dollars going out the door. Again, every dollar going out the door is it's a dollar not going into your shareholders' pocket. So we need something in return. By measuring, we also have the ability to find the right partners to ensure our program's success and the goals that we'll set for ourselves if we put a framework in place. It enables us also to make sure that we're fostering collaboration to get deeper results. So maybe you're in a space, you're in the hunger space and you've been focused on pantries and distribution, but not going far enough into food security where you need to get other services in order to make somebody food secure. How do we bring organizations together to partner? I've seen this work more and more times, and I've even seen nonprofits come together and combine to bring their services together. So how do we look at what they're achieving in order to go deeper? The last two are always important, right? How do we make decisions? I know we all got into this space, and you'll see this in a minute, because we want to give back. We want to do good in the world, but we want to shift your head. And this is going to be a lot of what we'll talk about. I don't want to call you guys funders or granters anymore, because that to me is giving away and bestowing. You're investors. You're investors in social change. So we're going to talk about making decisions based on the return on investment, because if you're going to invest your own dollars in the stock market, you want to see a return. Same thing here. You want to see a return for the dollars that you're putting into your communities. And ultimately, you want to be able to tell your organization's impact story. So we'll get through each of these, hopefully give you guys some ideas on how to put together a program that you can measure and get really in depth about how you're adding value to your business. But before we start, I want to talk about, how we got to where we are in this sector. As I said, measurement's been floating around as a term probably since the late 90s in this space, and it's gone through an evolution. And the evolution started with our companies, our foundations started back with this concept of the original philanthropy. I liken it to the Carnegie Rockefeller model of back in the day, wealthy individuals wanted to give back. Same thing here with our companies. We're doing well. We have employees in the community. We want to give back. We want to do good. Still why we get involved in this work, and why we are all passionate about it. But then we started talking, and the next buzzword that came around in the 90s, early 2000s, we need to be strategic. We need strategic philanthropy. So we started putting focus areas in, and when we got applications and we wanted to make sure that their mission and visions were aligned with our focus areas, we started to get some stories about their programs and maybe some outputs. And an output is basically meals served, pounds of food collected, orders of protection process. It's the activity, and we'll talk a lot more about that in a little bit. From there, we started to get to more of impact. What is different because we're investing in these programs? And it really started to think about, is a person better off because they went through the program versus just giving them a meal? Have they become food secure is the question that we're going to try to answer in a hunger situation. And that's really where measurement kind of grounded in this space. However, as the world changes, as our businesses change, we need to now start linking our business purpose and social impact. And that's the imperative that we've been facing for the past 10 years. How do we make sure that we are protecting our corporation's social license to operate? There's no other way to say it. We're in business to make money, but we also have to protect ourselves in communities, socially, and our social license to operate. That's where we'll focus a lot of today. However, I did want to share that the nonprofit space has been going through the same evolution. However, you all, the investor, are what's bringing them along, because a lot of times our nonprofit partners, unless they're really advanced, they're proactive, right? They're reactive, not proactive. They're reactive. They're reacting to what you're asking. They're not getting into it as early on. Not that that's a bad thing, because you help to shape, you help to build their capacity, but they get involved as this original provider where they're going to start addressing an issue or providing activities. Then they started counting number of meals served, number of participants served, number of classes provided. Then they became a storyteller because they thought that's what we wanted as funders or investors. And they were able to tell, one person's story, how they got out of a financial situation and, now are financially stable, depending on, or a health situation, and now their health is better because they went through the program. Where we want them to be, we want them to be an impact achiever, where they're demonstrating the changes in behavior or condition as a result of their programs. Again, what's different for the person because they went through the program, not the activities, not what the program does, but what change are they seeking? So how do we get there? If we want to link our business purpose and our social impact, as well as get our nonprofit partners to be this impact achiever, we need to think about where we are in the evolution. And in the early 2000s, a lot of you probably know this, Michael Porter and Mark Kramer wrote an article in the Harvard Business Review about shared value. There is a big initiative that many of you maybe attend, the Shared Value Initiative. It's a massive conference that gets done here every year in New York. And what they basically said is shared value is not about social responsibility. It's not about a corporate philanthropy program. It's not about sustainability. But it's a new way for our companies to achieve economic success. And you can see they put it directly in the middle. And that's why I believe that social needs is protecting that social license to operate. And what's driving us to move beyond the traditional CSR, and CSR is an older term. I know some of us call it community impact, some of us call it community investment, but in its truest form, it is corporate social responsibility. And some of the things that have been driving it for the last 10 years as we get to this linking business purpose and social impact, investors, starting back in 2018 when Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, wrote his letter to CEOs saying either contribute to society or risk losing our support. If you don't know, BlackRock is the vast majority holder of most of our companies, through their mutual funds and all the other financial mechanisms that they have. So pretty stark that he basically said, either start doing right by society or you're going to lose our support, which would impact all of our companies. We also know that as Americans, 76% of them, this was back in 2019, I would say it's probably higher now, look to support companies that address socially and environmental concerns and the issues that they feel aligned with. Our workforce, is really, whether it's millennial, now Gen Z, coming in, and they expect companies to do the right thing. They want to be involved in change. It's not enough to just go get a paycheck anymore, right? They want to be involved with a company that they believe in. Governmental. Here, we're almost at, I can't even believe I'm saying this, we're almost at the end of the sustainable development goals. There will be another initiative post that. Governments still get involved. So it's really important as we start to think about moving beyond traditional CSR, how do we go that extra step? How do we go deeper? And a couple things to think about is corporate social responsibility, starting out, as I said, that original philanthropy. We want to be a good corporate citizen. I would guess if there's 100 people on the phone, 90 of you at some point your company has had giving back to the places where our employees live and work as part of your philanthropy tagline. It's important, it's what we do. But what we want to make sure we're starting to look at now in this concept of linking business purpose and social impact is the economic and societal benefits relative to the cost. So as you're investing in society, how is it impacting the business? And you can see, instead of just being discretionary and responding, we want to make sure that what you're doing helps the business compete. Think about those consumers for your products or for your services or for your company, that will enable profit maximization and also attract talent. Think about those millennials, those Gen Zs that want to be attached to something that they believe in, an organization that they believe in. We also want to make sure that we're not developing focus areas based on personal preferences or reacting to something externally because something was said about the company. What we want to do is make sure that we're sitting with the business as we're looking at our focus areas, talking to them, understanding the business. I know many corporates, and I'm hoping some of you on the phone, maybe CSR or this space is just a part of your development plan where you come through for a couple of years because you're getting to learn the business. And that's important because understanding the business will enable you to set up your program. Ultimately, where we want to go is make sure that we're measuring impact across your business goals, the social needs, and that we're embedding all those things also into our policies and to our procedures. How we talk about it at my company at CIC is this concept of going along a journey, a roadmap to results. And the first steps are really where we'll focus in right now. But you can see we start by developing a strategy, making decisions based on ROI in step 5, but ultimately getting to tell our impact story. So the first step is making sure that you have that link between your business and your focus areas, your strategy, your community engagement, your community investment strategy, and identifying measures. So as we chunk this down, we can say that our business goals or your specific objectives, both long and short term, that your business is looking to achieve and grow and sustain your business. Your social impact is how you work to address social issues connected to your business. That's the important part. I can tell you when I was a corporate program manager, all of a sudden our program areas may not have made sense because they were not connected, because we were doing it based on history, personal preference that started back in the 60s with the program that I was part of. And then we have our business enablers. So as we think about our focus areas, we want to make sure that we're looking at our business goals, the social issues connected to our business, and making sure that we also embed both of what we're doing into our policies. So if you're going to fund in, I don't know, domestic violence for some reason, maybe you're a legal organization or some kind of organization that is women empowered, you're going to want to make sure you have policies to protect the victims within. Some ways for them to address it, some ways for them to report. So let's take a couple very high level, and most of you will get this, how stating what a business purpose is links to your program areas. So if I'm a food company whose goal is to be the leading industry provider of healthy food and snack options to enhance the quality of our customers' lives, you can imagine all of your focus areas are going to be related to food or some kind of food program. Food insecurity, maybe nutrition education, maybe something around healthy lifestyles and obesity. If I'm a bank whose goal is to make banking simple and accessible for all, not a surprise, financial literacy, small business development, maybe some community economic development. Obviously, I'm a huge animal person. My dog is probably sleeping behind me, and you can maybe see him walk across in the background in the fuzziness. But maybe, your business purpose is to give your pets the best life possible through proper nutrition and supplements. Obviously, adoption and education, maybe some service animals, keeping people and pets together, whether that's in a domestic violence situation, maybe that's during a store, maybe that's a senior that has to choose between feeding their pet or getting medicine. Again, you can see how the program areas link. And finally, an entertainment company, you can see, you would be in STEAM education, you'd be in women's empowerment, maybe some diversity and inclusion. Again, going through and understanding the business will lead you, hopefully, to the right focus areas. Now the big concept, because I would guess that most of your focus areas and most of your companies have gotten through that first piece where your focus areas hopefully align. Usually when we come in and we talk to people, we're tweaking them a little bit, getting a little bit more strategic. But where this starts to change is this concept of you're not a funder, you're an investor. You're an investor in social change, and you're impacting your company's social license to operate. You're protecting it. So how do you measure? One of the big things that I've seen in the almost 30 years in this space is we all set these big goals, whether we're the nonprofit, whether we're the funder in this case, and we'll say, hey, we're going to invest in a program to get to world peace, to end hunger, we're going to reduce unemployment rates. And we have a complete imbalance by what we then go to measure. We start with things like, how many people are we going to serve? How much have we allocated? How many different program approaches? There's no way that I can tell you if we've impacted something just by serving somebody. What we want to do as an investor is have the balance, the right levels of measures, what we should be looking at to see if we're getting to success. So if we take one of those areas, specifically reduce unemployment rates, what do we look at? Yeah, we want to know how many people are coming through the program, but what are we looking? Have we gotten a baseline for them? Did we assess their skills? Have they completed training, obtain a certificate? Have they gotten a job? Is it a living wage job? It's the behavior changes, not the activities. We're excited that they're going through the program, but we want to know the behavior that happened as a result of them going through the program. So instead of just having numbers served, we can now say, almost 1,300 of our 1,500 residents have obtained a full-time living wage job within 12 months of completing the program. Very different statement. So the shift from funder to investor really focuses on making sure that you have defined focus areas, you know who you want to change, and you know those indicators that you want to go through. It also talks through making sure that you're not just making sure that you're doing the compliance check, as I call it, on the application. Are all the answers there? Are they grammatically correct? Did they attach all the right things? Have they filled out any certification language to make sure that they are disclosing that you're giving them funds and they don't, they're not part of any bad faith organizations. Instead, we want to ask them and get answers to 3 quick questions. What are we buying, or what are we investing in? What are the chances we'll get it? How will the nonprofit be successful? And is this the best use of our funds? As an investor also, we want to make sure that you're partnering with them for the long term. And, we did a benchmarking report about a little less than a year ago for a client. And more corporates, rightfully so, are doing what we'll call proactive grant making, because they want to research, they want to find the partners, and they want to go deeper. So this is really focused on engaging partnering with these nonprofits to not only see what works, learn what didn't work, and improve upon it so that you can go deeper and deeper. And then just one more quick slide on this concept of how a funder speaks versus how an investor speaks. And then we're going to go into directly how to get to that measurement side. A funder would talk about one of the grants that they did as, hey, we gave this grant. It was to the food bank for 10 nutritional education classes that are going to run over 10 weeks. Just reading this, I'm exhausted. It's like pulling me down. As an investor, we'll turn around and say, hey, we gave $15,000. We invested it into the food bank, and it empowered 430 out of our 500 families that participated to sustain a healthy diet on a budget and adopt a healthy lifestyle for more than 3 months. More uplifting, more, about the difference you're making. So now we've linked our business purpose, our social impact. We talked about getting that balance. Now let's talk about the best practices and getting to the actual measures. For me, there's 5 critical best practice measurements that I always like to share. And the first one is to ask for those consistent metrics. And the first question I get back is, how do we do that? We can't tell them what to measure. And I'm going to walk you through how I think you can, because we're focused on the behavior. We're not focused on the activities. But first, let's get through some language. I mentioned outputs before. An output is basically the program's activities summarized in terms of units: pounds of food, meals served, recycling materials collected, all important numbers, and definitely part of the story, but that's not the change that you're going to have. That's not the behavior or the condition change. What we want to get to is what I call a continuum of change that monitors behavioral or conditional change toward a desired end state. And at the end of that is your desired change, your goal that you're setting. And ultimately, as you progress through this and as you continue in that same area, you'll get to an impact or a powerful major influence or effect on the participants that you're setting forth to change, or the community that you're setting to change. So as I talk about a continuum of change, yes, I present it linear. Let's just face it, we know human behavior or even, community or environmental conditions aren't linear. They're not flat. They cycle back, but we need some way to talk about it. And my firm belief is that if you can get to 3 behavioral changes, first at that connection stage where a participant, a person, a community is becoming aware of an issue, you're making that initial connection, they start working through the program and they get to the improve stage, and we'll get a behavioral change there to start to see that initial improvement. The program activities continue to run, and we get to transformation or lasting change that ultimately should attach to your desired end state or your results or the impact you seek to have. Again, depending on the program, maybe you have one set of partners that are only in the beginning stage, and then you have another set that's on the latter end. But let me take you through an example, and I'm going to blow it out a little bit more, and we'll have 2 measures for each of these stages to show you that you can have a program that funds all different types of services to get to the same, and have the same indicators to get to success. So if I have a domestic violence program, and I'm going to apologize up front because when I funded in domestic violence back in the 90s, it was mostly women. I know that is not the case anymore, but old habits die hard for me. And we know our end state is that we want these victims of violence to be socially and economically empowered to support and sustain their lives and that of their families. And in a domestic violence program, you could fund shelters, you can fund legal advocacy groups, career counseling, mental health counseling, all different types of programs. And what I get the question about is, okay, great, but now how do we have the same measures? And the answer is focus on the behavior and what's different for the victim or the woman in this case. And let's just take it through. So the first action or activity that happens before they even enter the nonprofit space. They're picking up the phone and calling a shelter, saying, I need to get myself and my kids out of this situation. Or they're calling a legal advocacy group and saying, I need a temporary order of protection against my former partner. they're making that initial connection. So the first kind of stop along this continuum is how many people have engaged in your services of whatever nonprofit you're supporting. From there, the nonprofit is starting to do their actions or activities. So they're sending a van to pick the woman up to provide a temporary short-term residence, or the legal advocacy group is starting to file a temporary order of protection. They're capturing all that now. We know that, they have all their case management notes, their case, maybe they're using a Bonterra product on the case side. But what happens is, I want to know now what's different because they sent that ban, because they started that order of protection. And that's that the victim, or the woman in this case, have had their immediate needs addressed. So maybe there are economic needs, maybe it wasn't an order of protection, maybe it was filing something to get support, child support, or some kind of support. So it could be an economic need, a social need, or a physical need. Continuing along from there, maybe the next activity that's happening or action within the nonprofit program, maybe the woman is moving into a long-term residence, or we're getting an order of protection. Again, the behavior change is now, instead of the immediate need being addressed, now they're stabilized. And you can see as we continue to go down, you can start getting into the career counseling, the financial counseling, building skills. Maybe there's some training. So you can fund all different types of programs under your domestic violence umbrella and have the same measures. And what that enables you to do is roll up your impact. I have 25 investments you can see here, within there, over 21,000 victims. You can see, the impact statement there at the end. Almost 45% of them, obtain the necessary skills or capacities to maintain their safety. You can see we'll also collect other metrics, because I don't want to say it just becomes about the continuum, because the other important thing is the business metrics and the engagement metrics, and even those outputs that we talked about. So you can start to roll up your organization's story, and I'll show an example of a client one in a minute, to tell the impact story. I'm going to take a breath for a second, because that was a lot. And, I hope, I can't see the chat right now. So I'm hoping there's thoughts or questions. Please ask them. This is about you guys getting what you need or learning something new, hopefully. So we talked about the roadmap, and that first part is the most important part, making sure that your focus areas are aligned, getting to those, what I call key behavioral indicators, or KBIs, along the continuum of change. But then as we go through the back end, once you do that, to me, a strategy is, isn't something that sits on a shelf. So once you put that strategy in place and you have those measures, you don't want it to sit on the shelf. It needs to be active. It needs to be a living, breathing document, a work plan, etc. So we're going to focus on, and I'm not going to go into a lot of details on these back ones, but I want to show you how we can operationalize it. And the first thing I want to say is, if you're leveraging cyber grants or you're thinking about it, I have a lot of clients on cyber grants. You have a powerful tool to do that. And what we want to do first and foremost is incorporate results into all our tools. And when I say all the tools, it's into the cyber grants, it's into your grants management system, but it should be on your website. You should be talking about it. You should be maybe doing some social media about it, so that you're constantly saying what it is you want to achieve. And results for us in this space start at the beginning. They start at the application. We don't want to go back to somebody unless we've agreed on what they want to achieve. So at the application stage, it could be just 4 to 5 quick questions. Again, you still can get all your other questions, but to get to a really results-focused application, I put 4 here. There's a 5th. But the first thing we want to know is, who is the population or place you propose to help through this project? What's the improvement and change that you seek to achieve? Tell us the result that you helped have at the end. How will you work to get there? They can give you all their project elements, all their activities. We usually give them guidance to give it in big chunks. When will you know they've succeeded? What kind of verification method are you using? We're not asking them to, hire an evaluator, but are you doing surveys? Are you using case manager notes? Are you getting school scores? What kind of verification method are you using? The fifth one that I would always normally add here is how will you sustain the project beyond beyond our grant term, our investment term. Making sure that you have this agreement up front to say, hey, you told us what you were going to achieve, that's what we're going to hold you accountable for. Which also then lends you to that investor mindset, because we want to make sure that we're making decisions based on those answers and narrative, those metrics that will be right below that on the continuum of change, because we're going to ask for those right up front. Tell us what you project, how many people you project to serve, and how many project to achieve, to make decisions like an investor. So let's get to this concept of investor mindset. As I just said a moment ago, you have your narrative questions, you have your data points, they tell a story. And you should start looking at that story to say, okay, do the results outlined within this application align with our strategic priorities, hit our target audience? Have they clearly articulated how they're going to get there through those program elements? Have they clearly shown us how they're going to track if they're getting there through a verification method? And given the fact that maybe you have a bunch of applications in front of you, is this the best use of your funds? Just flip it on its head. I talk about it in terms of risk and return. The risk is being, what is the chances a nonprofit partner will get to these stated results? And the return being, are they strong enough, and do they align the right way? Are they giving us back that ROI? And if you think about a program area, you probably have multiple, investments or grants within that program area. And what you want to try to do is balance your portfolio. You're going to have some that are, low risk, high return, that are your standbys. But if you're really invested in social change, you're probably going to get some that maybe are higher risk with a potential high return, so that you can learn to see what's happening, to see what works and what doesn't. So, we talked about the first four, the first three measurement best practices, and that's setting that strategy with consistent metrics, getting the information the right way, making decisions. But if you're a really investor in social change, you don't stop once the check or electronic funds transfers into the nonprofit. You want to keep going, because you're partnering with them, and you want to make sure that their success is your success, because you are a contributor to their success. And the next two things are monitoring progress throughout the grant term, which I know many of you probably do, but we're going to make it really simple in a second. And then leverage both the qualitative and quantitative to share your organization's impact story. So for me, a progress report, especially if you're going to do a midterm or even an end of grant, is very clear. We'll ask them those indicators, we'll ask them numbers of what they achieved, but we don't need a lot of narrative. I want to ask them a question: how successful were you in achieving those results? If they said they did more, okay, what enabled you to do so? If they said they achieved them, maybe I don't need to know anything else. They did what they said they were going to do. If they said they achieved less, what obstacles did you face? And how are you going to address them moving forward? Probably is the second part of that question. Ultimately, if we're getting that, it also leads into decision making for the future grants. Maybe if they achieve more, maybe I want to go deeper with them. Maybe give them a bigger grant. Maybe invest in them in a different way, building their capacity. Maybe trying to affect some kind of systemic reform, through policy or practice. If they achieve less, again, how do we either help them to continue to go to build or get better, or maybe it's, we've given them a couple of years and it's just not a right fit for us. And maybe we start to divest entirely. So again, not looking to go get a lot of narrative, because I know by the time you're reading these progress reports, you're also reading the next series of applications. So trying to make it as simple as possible. Finally, and then I'll open it up for questions. Hopefully, as I mentioned a moment ago, here's an example of a client, a couple client stories and how they did it. They still told their narrative. They talk about their dollars. They talk about the different programs. But you see, boom, in their food and nutrition program, here's their impact. 76% of their community members, or $1.5 million people, not dollars, are having their regular nutritional foods met. They still have the narrative, they have their pictures, it's a story, but boom, I can get to the dollars, the impact, the actual behavioral difference. A fresh chapter who Ashley mentioned, I've been working with for years and on their advisory board. So this is the flip side of how a nonprofit can report it. They tell their stories, they tell their individuals, but we put in a mechanism to track the behavior change of the participants, because these are people that have been impacted by cancer, have cancer, and now we want to know how they're dealing with the emotional side of it. And by going through the program, you can see 58% increase in belonging, 44% increase in meaning in their lives, resiliency. Again, just a way to talk about it. So I've spent a lot of time talking, and I know we only have maybe about another 7 to 10 minutes left if I'm looking at the clock rightly. I'm going to put my information up there. I went quickly. If you have specific questions that we can't get to today, you want to learn more, just throw out some ideas about what you've been doing. I'm happy to offer, 30 minutes of my time for each of you. There's my email, my phone number. Please feel free to contact me. And now I'm really going to pause and even put myself on mute for a second so that I can clear my throat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle, for this presentation. Folks, yeah, please take note of Michelle's contact information while we have it on the screen. Write that down, reach out to her after today's session. I'm more than happy to help, I'm sure. But Michelle, this was fantastic. It looks like we have a couple of questions to get through. The first question comes from Kate, and Kate asked, do you recommend hiring a third-party evaluator to outline the measurement plan in advance of the grant's project start date? Do you give the grantee an extra stipend to measure outcomes?
So, Katie, if I'm understanding the question correctly, I think you're thinking, do you give extra funds to your nonprofit partner to get there? So it really becomes up to you guys. I've had clients who basically, before they put their measurement framework out there, they did a capacity building initiative where they basically brought on their key partners and trained them, gave them dollars to learn how to do it, to bring their people together. Most times it's not needed because you're focusing on the behavior change. What I will say is, I think it is step 4 of the roadmap, and I'll pull it back up in 1 second. Just share. Where we talk about building staff and partner capacity. So I would never work with a client and tell them, just put a framework out there, put your measures out there, and let your nonprofit partners figure it out. You want to build their capacity, and whether you do trainings through webinars, whether you provide them worksheets, guidance, that is critical. I don't think you need to give them more funds, but I do think you need to build their capacity in some way, shape, or form. And a lot of times that's just through training. I've also had clients build in what I'll call technical assistance, where we would work with them to the nonprofits as the applications are coming in, help them get tighter before you guys even see them. So it really depends how you want to do it. But I think as long as you put the right information out there, you could, in today's day and age, you could do videos and put them out there. There's so many ways to do it without having to always think about, let's give them more money, because good, bad, or indifferent, we can't direct what that money gets used for. Whereas there's other tools that you can direct how it gets used. So that was a really long answer. I'm sorry about that.
No, more information, the better. And yeah, thank you as well. Awesome. Well, so it's a little bit of time to trickle in some more questions. It doesn't look like we have, but we have Michelle here again for a couple more minutes. But folks, if you are interested in looking at specifically Bonterra's tools for your community investment programs, I'm going to go ahead and launch another quick poll here. Again, please feel free to fill that out. And then once we wrap up this afternoon, we will have one of our colleagues reach out to you to, like I mentioned earlier, answer some of those questions, kind of continue the conversation, and see if there is any alignment in how we might be able to help you kind of measure your programs and your investments. So I'll let folks fill that out. And again, I'll let folks kind of trickle in their last minute questions while we still have you, Michelle. But while they're doing that, again, Michelle, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Thank you for joining us here again and giving such great information to our audience. I know it's very much appreciated. And for folks on the line, thank you. Thank you for taking 45 minutes out of your day to spend with us. It is not lost on us, and we really appreciate you joining us this afternoon. And we definitely hope to see you at our next session. Kayla, yes, we can get the actual deck to you post webinar as well. So great question.
And I will also add, just because I saw the poll, if anybody wants to talk about measuring employee engagement, which is a completely different, ball game, so to speak, but should be linked, feel free to reach out. I can give you, 1 or 2 slides on that as well.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, it doesn't look like we have any other additional questions coming through. But folks, you did have Michelle's contact information. If you have a question for her specifically, please reach out to her and connect with her. And again, thank you everyone on the line for your time and attention this afternoon. Michelle, thank you. I hope everyone here has a wonderful rest of their afternoon and a wonderful rest of their week. And we definitely hope to see you again at our next session. Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.